Welcome to our noon edition of Arirang News. Here's the headlines for this hour. Amid the fighting between Israeli forces and Hamas, the Seoul power station in Gaza stops working as fuel runs out. Israel, meanwhile, denies accusations that it used white phosphorus bombs in Gaza. As the humanitarian crisis is worsening in Gaza, the U.S. government has been finding ways to ensure safe passage for some civilians to get out. Discussions about making a humanitarian corridor are ongoing with Israel and Egypt. The USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier arrived in South Korea's largest port city, Busan, earlier today. It's the second U.S. aircraft carrier to visit this year, which is also the 70th anniversary of the start of the Seoul-Washington alliance. Starting with the latest with the Israel-Hamas conflict, Gaza's Long power plant has run out of fuel and shut down following a complete blockade order from Israel. There have also been claims that Israel is illegally using white phosphorus. Lee Seung-jae with more.
Gaza is currently without electricity as its only power plant has now shut down after running out of fuel. The shutdown comes just 2 days after Israel ordered a complete blockade of Gaza, closing off access to electricity, food, fuel, and water in response to Hamas's surprise attack on Israel last weekend. According to the head of the Gaza Power Authority, people are using generators for electricity, but even the fuel needed for generators is running out. Hospitals have also been affected and are set to run out of fuel by Thursday. The blockade order also means the water supply has been cut off, resulting in a severe shortage of drinking water for some 610,000 people. According to a New York Times report citing anonymous officials from Lebanon's military, Israel has been using white phosphorus bombs in its offensive against Gaza, a claim that Israel denies. White phosphorus bombs are internationally prohibited under the 1980 Geneva Convention when civilian areas are targeted. Meanwhile, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said Wednesday that Cairo is pushing for talks to contain the situation between Israel and Hamas. The Egyptian leader also called for a 6-hour ceasefire to deliver aid to besieged regions. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy's most advanced aircraft carrier and its strike group arrived in the eastern Mediterranean Sea on Tuesday in what Washington says is a move to deter any actor seeking to escalate the situation or widen this war. Following the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group, the U.S. is considering sending another aircraft carrier to the region, with U.S. defense officials hinting at the deployment of the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower to Mediterranean waters near Israel. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Making a clear distinction between civilians living in Gaza and Hamas militants, the U.S. is looking for ways to provide a corridor that could help people flee from Gaza. The White House says it's having active discussions with its allies, Israel and Egypt. Officials are also considering providing additional funding for Israel. Lee Si-hoo reports.
The White House is having active discussions with Israel and Egypt to find a way for some civilians to leave Gaza through a potential corridor.
Now, I know many of you have been asking about or expressing some interest in the idea of safe passage in Gaza for civilians. Let me just say right up front, we're actively discussing this with our Israeli and our Egyptian counterparts.
The U.S. continues to support safe passage, Kirby highlighted during the White House briefing.
We support safe passage for civilians. The civilians are not to blame for what Hamas has done. They didn't do anything wrong. I don't have an announcement to make today. I can't tell you a specific route or a corridor. I just want to make it clear that we are actively working on this with our Egyptian and our Israeli counterparts.
The White House is also pushing for additional funding for Israel along with Ukraine and has been speaking with members of Congress.
And it's critical, again, that we believe Congress sends a clear message to Putin, sends a clear message to the Israeli people that the United States continues to have their back.
Kirby said the U.S. can support both countries for now in the immediate term with existing authorities and appropriations. Meanwhile, NBC reported on Wednesday that the Biden administration is preparing a supplemental funding request to submit to Congress that combines money for Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, and U.S. border security. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Hundreds of civilian casualties and kidnappings happened at an attack by Hamas on a music festival in southern Israel over the weekend. My colleague Choi Soo-young spoke to one of the survivors who's still unsure about the fate of her some friends.
In one brief moment, a music festival meant for joy turned into a nightmare in southern Israel near the Gaza border on Saturday morning. Hila, a 26-year-old part-time bartender at the festival, told Arirang News that a rocket went off overhead. She thought it was fireworks.
I was telling to one of the customers, hey, look, there is a fireworks. And he looked at the sky and told me, I don't think it's fireworks. And we see a lot of red alarm, we call it in Israel, when like it's a missiles and rockets alarms. And then the production shut out the music and scream, there's a lot of missiles and rockets, run or hide.
At first, she hid inside the bar, frozen still in fear. One of her friends grabbed her hand to get off there.
And I turn around and see all the terrorists. People start to falling one by one, just like it doesn't related to if you're a soldier or an innocent civilian. How old are you? What is your gender? What is your religion? If you're Israeli or not? Just shooting all the people.
Some of her friends were killed in the massacre terror at the festival, and the fate of some is uncertain.
They're raping my friends. I have 3 friends that are already dead. 2 of them, we don't know what's happened to them, and 2 of them inside of Gaza. One of the things that I do remember, it's really in my mind, that while we are running and screaming and crying, I hear them singing and laughing.
A freelance journalist based in Tel Aviv, Israel, delivers the current situation from the field in Gaza.
The authorities in Israel ended up finding 260 dead bodies just from this festival alone. I know in one of the communities where a good friend of mine lives, at least 15 people, even within her community, were murdered, dragged out of their homes and shot pretty much execution style, in her words.
She added almost 360,000 reserve troops, including volunteers, have been called up throughout the country.
Israel doesn't want to kill anyone. We don't want to kill Palestinians. That's not what the ethos of this country is about. But Israel must defend itself, and we don't have any choice.
They said that Palestine and Hamas are completely different, and that the terrorist organization must stop. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
Following Hamas's attack in Israel on Saturday, South Korean President Yoon has condemned the Palestinian militant group. The president on Wednesday met with U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who quickly wrapped up his Asia visit due to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. The top office says the 2 leaders condemned Hamas's attack and agreed that Seoul and Washington should play a constructive role in swiftly ending the crisis and finding stability. This comes after Yoon convened an emergency meeting to review the security and economic impact of the Israel-Hamas conflict.
이스라엘 하마스 사태가 전면적 양상으로 치닫고 있습니다. 이미 수천 명의 사상자가 발생했습니다. 여러 국가의 입장과 이해관계가 첨예하게 얽혀있는 사안인 만큼 사태의 확대 가능성을 배제하기 어렵습니다.
Yoon said a prolonged crisis in the Middle East, in addition to the war in Ukraine, could cause further disruptions in energy security and supply chains around the world. The president reiterated the need to prepare for risks to the safety and livelihoods of South Korean nationals, calling on the government to monitor the situation thoroughly and take preemptive steps to minimize the fallout of the conflict. Moving on to news on North Korea, Kim Jongun has reportedly exchanged congratulatory messages with Russian President Vladimir Putin to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Pyongyang and Moscow. According to the regime's state-run Korean Central News Agency on Thursday, Kim emphasized that he was, quote, very satisfied with the fact that he recently visited Russia for what he called an open and comprehensive exchange of opinions with Putin. The KCNA reported that Putin also acknowledged the recent summit in his message to Kim, saying that it confirmed their friendship and cooperation. In 1948, Russia was the first country in the world to recognize the North Korean regime. The USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier arrived in South Korea's port city of Busan on Thursday. According to Seoul's defense ministry, the carrier strike Group 5, which includes the aircraft carrier, the Aegis-equipped USS Shoop destroyer, and other warships, will dock at Busan's naval base for a 5-day visit. Prior to arrival, the strike group had taken part in a trilateral exercise with South Korea and Japan in international waters southeast of Jeju Island. It is the second U.S. aircraft carrier to visit this year, after the USS Nimitz docked in Busan in March for naval drills. The Defense Ministry says the visit was scheduled as part of the U.S. commitment to further enhance the regular visibility of strategic assets on the peninsula. Now to some finance-related news. South Korea pledged to make several donations at a meeting of G20 finance ministers and global bank chiefs taking place in Morocco. According to the Ministry of Economy and Finance on Thursday, Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho pledged $3 million the day before the Global Supply Chain Partnership program called Resilient and Inclusive Supply Chain Enhancement Partnership, or RISE. Seoul also promised an additional $80 million for the Green Growth Trust Fund to actively contribute to the World Bank's new vision for a livable planet. At a roundtable to discuss support for Ukraine, Chu Kyung-ho spoke of the importance of nation rebuilding and revealed plans to donate $50 million to the Special Program for Ukraine and Moldova Recovery Fund. As part of efforts to reduce carbon emissions, South Korea saw the number of so-called eco-friendly vehicles go up by more than 40,000 last month. According to Korea Automobile Manufacturers Association, the number of eco-friendly cars surpassed 2 million in September, making up 7.9% of all registered vehicles in the country. This figure has been rapidly increasing, jumping from 500,000 in 2019. Eco-friendly cars include hybrid cars, electric cars, and hydrogen vehicles. You may be familiar with robot vacuums that keep the house nice and clean. But have you ever seen a robot that cleans while responding to your gestures? Well, our Moon Hye-ryun shows us the latest robot technology from this year's Robot World exhibition.
Robots that can fry food, robots that can walk on all fours, robots that can piece things together. These are just some of the robots on display at the country's largest robot convention this year. Starting on Tuesday and running until Saturday, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy is hosting the biggest Robot World yet.
Here at Robot World 2023, over 240 companies and organizations are showcasing a future where robots and humans can walk side by side.
This is a robot that serves, but unlike most serving robots that follow a given path, this one can navigate through narrow spaces. It can also avoid small objects on the floor, but its biggest development is the way it responds to human gestures. Raising a hand will register in its system through a camera sensor, prompting it to wheel over. This South Korean company also developed the first cleaning robot in the world that, instead of wheels, has a mop that swivels to move. This year, it's been upgraded so that it can pass over raised door sills into different rooms. But robots are now advancing beyond assisting humans in their daily lives. Now we're a step closer to coexisting with robots and having them work with each other. The Korea Institute of Science and Technology has developed a sequence of coordinated robots to create the ultimate cafe experience. Robots take your order, make the coffee, serve it to your table, and also serenade you with music.
This demonstration shows how different robots will be able to coexist with us in the future.
And it's not just in our everyday routine where robots come in handy. In industrial production, they're key workers. Labor shortages in the shipbuilding industry are a serious issue all around the world. Not only are there not enough people, but as jobs such as welding require special training, it's difficult to find people who have enough experience to produce the quality of work needed. With these robots, however, anyone can weld.
This robot just needs a starting point of welding, and then it will do the job for you.
With the expansion of robots in a wide variety of fields from service to manufacturing, it's fast becoming a key future industry for the country. The government will be announcing its fourth basic plan for intelligent robots within the year in order to foster the robotics industry further. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Lego plastic bricks could be small, but they often spark big and imaginative creations for children and adults alike. And there's an artist who's been using them to reinterpret traditional Korean culture. My colleague Song Yujin has this story.
The soulful sound of the Korean traditional song Pamsori harmonizes with the graceful moves of chuningmu, a Korean traditional dance. What makes this performance even more captivating is a Lego ensemble seemingly dancing and playing music in the background. It's all part of Lego artist So Jin-ho or Colin Jin's first solo exhibition, Colin Jin's Historical Lego, where plastic blocks breathe life into tradition.
Korean culture is enjoying global popularity, but in reality, everything popular today is quite modern. It made me wonder if we might be losing touch with our history. I began delving into our cultural heritage from the past and got the idea of using Lego blocks to connect the past with the present.
The exhibition showcases 100 Lego artworks depicting Korean cultural heritage. The highlight is the Jongmyo Chereak, a royal ancestral ritual that was carried out between the 14th and 19th centuries during the Joseon dynasty. A UNESCO cultural heritage, this Confucian ceremony features song, dance, and music with dozens of performers.
The playful combination of the traditional orchestra, so even the traditional Korean instruments are in there, several of them. So I think it's quite exciting.
You can also enjoy Lego versions of the Korean folk dance Seungmu, a dragon-faced roof tile from the ancient Silla kingdom, and the Korean mask Thurs. It took So 18 months and over 10,000 blocks to finish his creations, and he didn't rely on any customized Lego blocks or manuals. The exhibition's goal: to entertain and educate visitors.
Making Korean culture and the arts easily enjoyable for everyone is a wonderful endeavor. We're delighted to be a part of the opening ceremony and look forward to promoting our cultural heritage to a wider audience.
A reinterpretation of traditional Korean beauty through the lens of one of the modern era's most iconic toys, Colin Jin's Historical Lego is on show at the Moriham exhibition in Central Seoul for 2 weeks. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. Australian-Chinese journalist Chang Lei has been freed from Chinese detention after more than 3 years. According to Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on Wednesday, Lei has been returned after being freed via a legal process. It comes as tense relations between Canberra and Beijing appear to be improving after reaching a peak during the pandemic. The 48-year-old was arrested in August 2020 and was accused of illegally supplying state secrets overseas. At the time, she was working as a business anchor for CGTN, China's state-run English-language TV station. Chinese authorities allege she admitted to using her position to gather sensitive information for a foreign organization. But much of her case was kept behind closed doors, prompting criticism that the detention may have been politically motivated. NASA has for the very first time revealed an analysis of rock samples that were collected from an asteroid over 330 million kilometers away. According to the space agency on Wednesday, material taken from the Bennu asteroid around 3 years ago was rich in carbon and water-laden minerals. The find backs up a long-held theory that asteroids such as Bennu may have played a vital role in delivering important elements to support life on Earth billions of years ago. The analysis comes after an initial 3-day study of just a small amount of the complete rock sample collected from the 4.5 billion-year-old asteroid. The material was scooped up by a specialized spacecraft in October 2020. It then took a 3-year journey back to Earth. In the United States, scores for high school students taking the American College test have dropped to their lowest in more than 3 decades. This is according to the latest figures released on Wednesday by ACT Inc., the non-profit that gives the test. It said that the average ACT composite score was 19.5 out of 36, down 0.3 points from last year. Although college admission test scores have been falling for 6 years, the drop accelerated during the COVID-19 pandemic. The results mean that new high school graduates may not be ready for college-level coursework. The organization says that average scores in reading, science, and math were below the required standards needed to ensure a successful first year in college. And finally, Jada Pinkett Smith has revealed that she and her husband, Will Smith, have been separated for 7 years. The reveal on Wednesday came in a clip of an upcoming interview on NBC News Primetime. Pinkett Smith said that the couple had not said anything to the public as they had not been ready to disclose their separation. She added that they are still figuring out, quote, how to be in a partnership, and that they are not legally divorced. The couple, now both in their 50s, have been married since 1997. Their relationship issues were thrust into the spotlight last year at the Oscars, when Will Smith slapped presenter Chris Rock over a joke he made about Jada. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. A pleasant autumnal feel continues across much of Korea under sunny skies. The temperature range in the capital is similar to Wednesday, hovering around the seasonal norms. Large temperature differences persist between day and night, and mountainous regions in Gangwon-do are having an early taste of winter when the sun is in. Chuncheon in Gangwon-do province has been waking up to single-digit morning temperatures for a few days now, but afternoon highs will be a big jump, rising into the 20s this afternoon. Afternoon highs are similar to yesterday in most places, hovering in the low 20s at about 23 degrees Celsius under mostly sunny skies with decent air quality. So it's another fine day to get outside in the afternoon, even for a short stroll. Despite plenty of sunshine, UV rays will not be strong. As much as we wish the weather pattern to stay this stunning, there will be a cool down from next week as the hiking season approaches. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Before we end off, it's time for Anchor's Pick, where I share my own snippet of insight on the top news this hour. Demonstrators around the world have been waving flags to show their solidarity with either Israelis or Palestinians. Let's take a look at what's been happening in Paris. Following Hamas's surprise attack, the city's iconic Eiffel Tower on Sunday lit up in the colors of the Israeli flag. The next day, those supporting Israel came out to the streets, showing their solidarity, and some point to years of anti-Semitism in parts of the world. Over in New York's Times Square, police on Monday set up a barricade separating a group of pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian demonstrators. Those waving Palestinian flags demanded a free Palestine. With so many in the world divided on the issue, that turns us to the most pressing question: which international actor can play peacemaker? That was our nooncast on Arirang News, and I'll come back with more at the same time again tomorrow.